Yeah, thanks, Troy, for taking the time to join in. I'm super excited to have you on our customer success session. Today's session is all about you and your business and how you're using Mozilla AI to automate stuff, and hopefully that brought a huge impact to you, right? So let's start with yourself. If you could introduce yourself and your business.
So my name is Troy Lambert. The majority of my business is I'm an author and an editor and a publisher. Those are the
Oh wow.
three things that I do. I also work in author education, which the reason that's important is because I can create automations that allow me to educate authors on how to create automations. It's actually really kind of a neat thing. And I can also create tools that I use for my business for making things easier for me that also make things easier for other authors as well. So I can say, hey, here's your blueprint for creating this tool that's going to save you hours so that instead of freeing you up to do more, it frees you up to do less and maybe spend more time writing or doing whatever the other things that you want to do instead of spending time on these admin tasks that we all don't want to do. So,
Mm,
um, or that we want to do as fast as possible type thing.
right.
So, yeah.
Yeah, and then if you could talk about your business, what your business do, whom your client might look like.
So, so I have a couple different clients. So the first thing is that I write books. I write mysteries and thrillers and things like that. So my first clients are really readers, but I mean the the biggest issue that authors have is discoverability, is people finding you.
Mm,
And so the way they find you
mm,
is through ads or through social
mm,
media posts. Well, AI combined with automation allows you to create some really neat social media posts and images and things like that without spending a tremendous amount of time doing it. So you can input, so I can, for instance, I can input, I have an audio series that's going on this year. It's a one audio book. It released every week for an entire year. And they're short, 2,000 word audiobooks. So they're short, 15-minute audio stuff you
mm.
can digest really quickly. Well, for each one of those, I have to create social media posts and I have to create a blurb to put on these platforms like Spotify and Apple and all those kind of stuff. And I have to create all these collateral materials that go with them, along with character images and things like that. So what what an automation allows me to do is to essentially, as soon as I upload the text of that episode, I have an automation that creates all the social media assets, all of the images, and then puts them in a spreadsheet in the format that I need to upload them to my social media scheduling software. And then at that point, obviously, I have a human intervention thing because AI makes mistakes. So I'm not going to post AI content without checking
100%.
it. Plenty of brands have found out and just exactly how embarrassing that can be. So, I'm not going to do that. So I have a human intervention step at that point where I look at the content, make sure the images and the social media content is good, and then I upload it to a social media management platform. And I have the same thing set up for my website. As soon as a blog post goes live, well, immediately I get created social media assets for that blog post without, I don't do anything. Basically, it just happens because the automation is set up through Mazzal, through my WordPress that's tied in. That essentially, as soon as that post is published and goes live, all of that happens automatically. I don't,
Wow.
and so I get an email. Basically, part of the automation is I get an email that says your marketing assets for such and such blog post are ready. Go and upload them to your social media platform, and then that's
That
what I
sounds
do.
awesome. Yeah, yeah.
So
Would
yeah,
you
super slick, super slick.
yeah. You mentioned about posting to social media platforms. Like what kind of platforms do you usually post and then manage to automate those?
So usually I post primarily LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. I don't automate YouTube posting as much for a bunch of different reasons. But anyway,
Mm,
that's usually done some of the assets are created automatically, but then there's more manual things involved with the YouTube postings. But basically, the meta platforms, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, TikTok, some stuff to Blue Sky and Threads, but neither one of those is really a big player in the space still. And then some of the content that they create out of there ends up going onto Substack, but since Substack doesn't have an API at the moment, there's no automated way to get it onto Substack. So that step involves the human intervention of putting the notes and posts up on Substack. If they had an API, I'd be automating some of that too, but they don't. So it's just not happening. But anyway, so that's all. So that all happens. So there's a human intervention step. I get an email. They basically, I upload to that as a manual, but as a manual last step, I check everything and then I upload a file which has the dates, the times, and all the stuff that's posting to social media. All of that is created through the automation process. It says, when was this post published? Okay, well, it's going to be published on this date, so that's the date that the social media posts start posting.
Yeah, that's amazing. I have to ask you this. I'm interested in know whether you would describe yourself as a technical person or not really technical person. Like, what's your, I guess, the background, academic background as well, way back, and then what got you into the automation as well?
So I've always been kind of a tech person, kind of like, so the publishing industry. So I've been doing publishing and authoring full time, along with editing and stuff like that since 2009. So the
2009.
publishing industry has completely changed. The technology around it has completely changed. I tell people the only thing that's the same about publishing now as was in 2009 is that we still write words and make books out of them. And we do still publish on Amazon. The process of doing that isn't the same, but we still do that thing, right? All the technology has changed, and all of the formatting of books and all of that stuff has all changed. And I made a decision early on in my writing career that I was either going to adapt to new technology as it came along or get left behind, essentially, because I saw what would happen when something new came along and somebody was like, I'm not doing that, I'm not adopting that. Inevitably, what would happen is everybody else is doing it, and pretty soon they're like, well, I guess I have to do it anyway. And then now they're figuring it out on the back end instead of being ahead of the curve and figuring it out on the front end. And so I just decided I'm not doing that. When something new comes along, I'll try it. If it doesn't work for me or it fades away, like there's been social media platforms that have come and gone and just kind of like, it was kind of a flash in the pan, but I've always had at least a profile there just in case, maybe if that's the next big thing, if that kills Facebook and that's the next big thing, then we need to be on there and be doing something there so that we can be capturing those readers and stuff like that. So I've just always been involved in that. And so I've already had this kind of I want to call it, I don't want to call it an automation craze, but like an automation trend that's happening right now. Even before that, like I was automating, like my email welcome sequence was automated, because as soon as there were tools to do that, I saw the value of, I'm not going to answer every reader email personally. I don't have time. I won't have any time to write books. All I'll be writing is emails. So I'm not going to do that. So I'm going to automate that process as much as possible. So the more and more things that have been able to be automated, the more I've adopted, like, okay, well, let's see what's happening. Well, then generative AI has kind of come on the scene. I mean, it was kind of, I've been interested in it for a while, but like it wasn't really mature and kind of consumer ready for a while. And then when it finally came on the scene where it was becoming super popular and relatively easy to use, then I went, okay, well, now this is an opportunity to automate some things that I don't necessarily want to do all the time if I don't have to, and have a machine talk to the machines so I can actually talk to people, and so I can actually write more of my books. And that's really what I want to do. So I got interested in automation. A friend of mine really got into it. She is like super techie. I am not nearly to her level. But the more she talked about some of these workflows and creating them, the more I said, well, actually, that's pretty easy. And then I saw Mazal. I was like, you know what? I think this is a tool. is the answer for me. And I decided, if I'm an early adopter, hey, who knows where this thing's going to go, but they already, you had a lot of the integrations. I was like, those are the things that I need. And then with APIs, I can do a bunch of other stuff. So I was like, well, seems like an easier way to me than going down the road of self-hosting a bunch of stuff and doing, there's people that do all that kind of stuff. And that's just not, I don't want to spend my time doing that. So I just don't.
Mm.
So when I saw that there were more automation tools available, I just kind of shopped around and kind of figure out which one I wanted. And Mazzal just kept hitting the buttons every time. So then I bought it. Then I made a couple of friends of mine buy it too, because I
Oh,
was like,
that's nice of you.
if you're gonna, well, I'm like, if you're gonna automate, right, and you're gonna want help with your automations, then use a program that I know how to make automations in, because otherwise, I don't want to help you because I don't want to learn a new program. So I'm like, if you want to help with this, you have to, So, and the other thing is like the ability to take what I have in Mazzal and export it as a template and then share it with somebody. Then they can set it up the way that they want, but at least they've got a starting point.
Yeah,
And
100%.
so that's
Yeah.
kind of a big thing for me too, is being able to just do that, just share that and say, okay, now you need to go and fix what you want to fix. But this, at least you have the basics of this is the way I do it, which
Interesting.
may or
That
may not
sounds
be the
great.
best way, but it's a way. So,
Yeah, definitely. Templates are definitely something we are spending a lot of time. Recently, we just managed to ship more than 1,000 templates for the AI agents specifically. The next step is obviously for the workflows. And then we're going to allow our users to share their templates to the public so that public can take a benefit from there as well.
oh,
We will even introduce something called monetization. So, like, you can basically sell your templates. A lot of people are interested in started using it. You will
oh
have
yeah.
this revenue share model as well, so that the first comers will have bigger advantage. I would say, but yeah, that's something we're gonna work towards. Um, Going back to your automation, I just want to know how complex your automation is. Like, how many steps are there? How many the tools are there
Whew.
involved in there? And then finally, if you could tell us what kind of impact it brought you, like if you were doing it all by manual versus, the automation, how much time or impact it might brought to you.
Oh man. So one of mine, probably the most complex one, is essentially designed to create what we call a story Bible from information that's input at the beginning, right? Basically in a Google form. And some of my stuff is entered using other forms with webhooks and stuff like that. But this particular one I just did through a Google form because it's relatively easy. And it allows me to run a couple different automations with the same information. And that one has over 100 steps, I think. It's pretty complicated. Um, and but it basically, I mean, the main parts of it are ChatGPT, Grok, Airtable, well, Google Forms, ChatGPT, Grok, Airtable, and Google Drive are probably the
Mhm.
main components in it. There's probably Google Docs are in there somewhere too, and then there's two different routers within that particular flow that route things out differently depending, because basically that was a substitute for. So the one thing I wish is that in looping on items, that you could do a count for that and then make it stop, right? Make it loop a certain number of times and then make it stop,
Mhm.
which is challenging to do. You can kind of hack it a little bit, but it's not super smooth, as smooth as I'd want it to be. And also it doesn't pull all the information from this particular, it's long text, so it's kind of complicated. So instead I just created a router and some additional flow items there that basically do the same thing that I would do if I was looping something. So it actually works out really well. That's the most complex of them, but most of them are most of them are under 50 items. And some of those are repeating items, like I'm creating several social media images, several social media posts, there's another one where I create the metadata that you need for a manuscript to upload it to different retailers. So it creates keywords for you, helps you select categories, and creates your BISAC categories, which you need for uploading fiction. And it does all of
Interesting.
that in a single workflow, basically by uploading the manuscript to a Google Doc file. So that one is another one that's probably 60, 70 steps, maybe more off the top of my
Wow.
head. But yeah, there's a couple that are really complex, but the majority of them are fairly quick and simple. Like one of them is with my booking calendar. If somebody books me for an editing consultation, and depending on which choice they choose, it sends them a different email, basically. And
Interesting.
so that
Yeah.
one's, I mean, that one's got a router and it's got a bunch of different choices. But really, what happens in each flow is about 4 steps because it really just depends on which thing they chose in the calendar. So there's really only about 4 or 5 steps that are actually in the flow each time. So
Makes sense.
it varies a little bit, but I try to keep them as simple and as tight as I possibly can, while at the same time getting everything done that I want to get done. So the Story Bible one, like I said, that's probably the most complicated one, and I'm actually going to duplicate that for a different series as well. So it's but it has a lot of steps, but it does a lot of things out of those steps. So and basically creates a database that I can then do all kinds of queries and stuff with. So it's
Interesting. Yeah.
super useful.
And in terms of the impact wise, how much time or effort it might save you if you were to
So
do it all manual?
so like man, overall it saves me a ton of time now. But one of the first ones I did was for that audio episode that I'm doing every week. Like there's just a lot of little work involved in that like not one thing takes up a tremendous amount of time, but when you add it all together, it was taking me 2 to 2.5 hours a week to do this stuff. And now it's literally at least the draft of the social media posts and stuff is done in about 5 minutes. So it like right off the bat, as soon as I started using Mazzal, the very first flows I created saved me about 2 hours a week. Now with the other ones that I have running, it probably some of the stuff. If I didn't have Mazzal doing it for me, I wouldn't do it. But some of the stuff is literally like probably overall I'm saving 12 hours a week, sometimes more, depending upon what tasks are running that particular week. So yeah, it's constantly saving me time and effort. The initial effort of developing the automation takes time, but the saved effort on the end pays itself back. Usually within a week or two, I paid myself back for
Mm,
that time that I used to develop the automation.
interesting. That's incredible, man. Yeah. Do you have any tips for the people who's just getting onboarded with Mazal AI? Or in
And
general, automation wise, like do they need to build something complex or do they need several, simple workflows that talk to each other, or do they need to bring AI agents more often? Like, what's your experience so far?
so what I would say is if possible to develop shorter flows that talk to each other and let the apps talk to each other. The other thing I would say is just understand the impact of your prompts. The biggest mistake I see with authors and people in my circle who are using AI for these type of tasks is that they're putting in kindergarten level prompts and they're really upset when they don't get good results. And I'm like, well, you're asking your AI to do master's level work, but you're not giving it the information it needs in the prompt to enable it to do that. So as a result, you're not getting good results out. Well, that's not the AI's fault. That's your fault, right? That's
Classic
not,
example of garbage input, garbage output, right?
yep, exactly. And I would say, so pay attention and don't be afraid to go in and modify your prompts in your flows when you find out there's a problem. If it starts producing something that's not good, it's not the automation. and it's likely not the AI model. It may be the AI model that you're using. You may need to switch to a different model, but it's more than likely it's in your prompt. Is the reason you're getting the garbage out. So go back and look at your prompt, but don't be afraid to. Don't just keep using a flow and then changing things afterwards because you think, well, that's just what it's going to produce. That's not. Don't do that. There's go back in, edit your flows, play with them, retest them. Yeah, it's gonna take some work, but just do it. It's worth it. It's worth it in the long run.
100%. Yeah, that sounds awesome. Hey, Troy, I would love to read your book, and probably also the listeners who's listening to this want to hear. Where can we find you? And then what kind of channels are you on? Basically, yeah,
Uh,
we can
so
find your info.
I'm all over the place. You can find me on all kinds of different channels, but books are pretty much everywhere. If you go to troylambertstories.com is your starting place. That's where you'll find most of my fiction work. If you're an author and you want to learn more about author automations and editing and the other things that I do, then I have a website that's called theplotabides.com. And you
What
can
was
find
that
me
again?
there as
One more
well.
time, sorry.
Theplotabides.com.
Vibe.com. Yeah, I will link those under the description section so that people can simply click on it and then get to know Troy and then his books. I can't wait to read some of your books. Just looking at one of your latest work, it's called Typewriter Repair Shop. And then the image and everything looks amazing. This is great.
Yeah. Yeah, we just did a Kickstarter. There's this anthology that'll be coming out. We just did the Kickstarter of it, so it's not available anymore. But the customer version of it will be coming out in January. It's called True Pulp. 13
Cool.
different authors. It's a super fun anthology. You'll get a kick out of that too.
All right,
Thank you.
that pretty much concludes our this for automation journey. But Troy, thank you so much for your time, and